Hello, Elevation family. It's Mr. B again. Today we're going to continue on with Back to Basics, Part 3. Hope you've enjoyed the first two short lessons or conversations, whatever you might want to call them. Today we're going to continue reading in Psalm. I've got some extra verses today that I'm going to go over you, so I'm going to go kind of fast so we can get through them without taking up too much time. But our text verse is Psalm 34:6. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. Now, we've dealt with this poor man and crying unto the Lord in the last two discussions we've had. Today I want to talk about that section of the scripture that says, and the Lord heard him. I'm thankful that we've got a God that hears us. I'm thankful that I know I can have confidence, go to God, and I know He's going to hear me. If you ever have a conversation with someone and you just realize, even though you're talking, they're probably not listening, and I'll say that on Mrs. B's behalf. She's probably had those conversations with me, I'm going to admit, where she'll talk, and then she says, you weren't even listening to me. And that's not a good thing. That's not a healthy conversation. I'm working on that. I'm trying to get better on that, but I need the Lord to help me with that, and myself. But thank God that we don't have a God that is like that. David cried unto God, and he had confidence that he was going to hear him. David knew that God would hear him. Remember the story about Elijah and the prophets of Baal? When he was mocking them, when they were trying to call out to their gods and nothing was happening, and Elijah mocked him and said, I don't know, maybe he's talking. Maybe he's out on a trip. Or, I don't know, maybe he's asleep. You need to wake him up. Well, our God's not like that. Thank God that He is not like that. The true God listens to us. I'm going to go ahead and give you some verses here, and I want you to follow along with me and think about these verses as we read them. The first one is in the New Testament, 1 John chapter 5. 1 John chapter 5, and I'm going to go ahead and look at verse 14. 1 John chapter 5, verse 14 says, and this is the confidence that we have in Him, that if we ask anything according to His will, He heareth us. Now, we should be confident. We know that God can hear us. So we shouldn't be afraid that we're not heard. God hears you. Turn back to Isaiah chapter 65. Isaiah 65, verse 24. Isaiah 65:24 says, and it shall come to pass that before they call, I will answer. And while they are yet speaking, I will hear. God is waiting. He's ready to hear. It says, while they're yet speaking, I'm going to hear. Before they call, I'm going to answer. That's the kind of God you and I have. Turn over to Micah chapter 7. Micah chapter 7, verse 7 says, therefore, I will look unto the Lord. I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God will hear me. My God will hear me. You need to have that confidence too. I don't know, maybe you think that, people don't listen to you. Maybe you think that you talk and no one cares what you have to say and they ignore you. Well, I know someone that will never do that. I know someone that's always wanting to hear from you, and that person is God. David knew that. David cried out to God, and God heard him. And God will hear you and I as well. No doubt. Let me finish up with Psalm chapter 116, verse 2. And I'm going to leave you with this. Psalm 116:2 says, because He hath inclined His ear unto me, therefore will I call upon Him as long as I live. God's not just listening, He's leaning in listening. That's called active listening. He's inclining Himself, waiting to hear from you. And Psalm 116:2 says, therefore will I call upon Him as long as I live. I pray that you can say the same thing, because God is waiting to hear from you, and He's standing by waiting for you. So call out to Him. He's going to hear you, and He'll listen, unlike sometimes I do. I love you. I miss you, and we'll see you next time. God bless.